There is some question as to whether this is a 351 Cleveland, 351M, or a 400, which got no M designation on it at all. And today, what I plan to do is dispel all the myths. Well, it's not myths. It's the problem I'm running into with Facebook. Facebook Marketplace is arguably the place to go to find crazy stuff that you might need for your classic car. It's just the way it is. It used to be eBay, and then it was also Craigslist, but I find that the guys at Facebook Marketplace have eclipsed those two for looking for weird parts for your classic car. One of the weird parts I'm looking for is a new block to replace the block that I got from John's widow when we got the Torino in. We'll talk about that in just a second.
Autocorrectors can help you.
So what I have here on the engine stand is the engine that I got in when I got the Torino. This is the 351 Cleveland block, and these are a set of cylinder heads that I got at an estate sale probably about a year and a half ago. I think we did a little video on that, that we talked about what happened at the estate sale. I believe I paid $50 for the pair of these cylinder heads. Now these are 351 Cleveland 4-barrel closed chamber heads. Someone's done a port fill on the intake side. They've blocked off the heat exchanger here in the center, which I'm not crazy about that. I may dig that out because on the street, this move right here makes these engines, which are perennially cold-natured, even harder to get warmed up. So I may go in and open those up if they're not completely filled. If they're completely filled, I'm not going to worry about it. The other things they have is screw-in studs, and they have Manley guide plates and triple valve springs. Don't think I'm going to need the triple valve springs that they're running, but I'm going to take them to my local machine shop, have them check the cylinder heads out, and make sure they're a good nick for use. And we'll be putting these heads on a Cleveland block in the 70 Torino that this block came from. And you may be wondering, why am I looking for a 351 Cleveland block? The reason I'm looking for a block is there's a nick in cylinder number 5 that's a very deep gouge, and it looks like from where the rodents got into this stuff and they peed down inside the cylinder bores, particularly on 5. I don't know what their problem was with cylinder number 5, but they had a real issue with it, and they peed in there, and that cylinder needs to either be sleeved or I need to find a replacement block. Now, one of the things I'm going to be doing personally, going out and trying to find out how much the sleeve's going to cost at my local machine shop here in Augusta, over at Bose, which is a shop that we use quite frequently. But the other side of me decided to just start looking for a decent block. And what I'm finding is there is a real problem with people posting a 351 Cleveland when it's in fact a 351M. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to go and give you guys a little bit of a guidance on when you're looking for a Cleveland block, what to look for. I am not going to get off into whether the 400 or the 351M are a good replacement for building an engine for your Ford. I will talk a little bit about some of the problems that come up from wanting to go from a 302 to a 351M or a 400. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about nomenclature. As you know me, I like a good bit of nomenclature. On these engines, the 351 Cleveland, or at least what we call a Cleveland, is actually just a 335 series engine to Ford. Cleveland nomenclature comes from us. We're the ones that call them Cleveland because these were mostly cast at the Cleveland foundry. The little thing I'm showing you here is the emblazon that's usually on the back part of the block. Next to the oil sending hole, there's usually a little CF there. That's Cleveland Foundry. Some of these weren't cast at Cleveland though, but the majority of them were, so they've become known as Cleveland 351s. Now in 1971, these came out in 70. In 1971, Ford introduced the 400, which was a tall block version of this engine. There are some discrepancies between the two, but the 400 was designed for large passenger cars. So it's a longer stroke, it's got a different block deck height, and that's where we're going to find out our first thing. That's coming up in just a second. We'll get to it. First, though, we move to 1975 and the 351M. Now, the biggest bit of knockdown drag out in all this, and I know that there's probably thousands and thousands of people talking about this on the internet, but the biggest knockdown drag out is what that M stands for. Does it stand for Michigan? Does it stand for modified? I can't find any substantiating evidence that points directly to either or. There are people out there that say it's modified. There are people out there that say it's Michigan. And there are other people say that it's just an M to change designation from the earlier 335 series Cleveland. Whatever it is, the engine's out there and people will be using them to possibly poke it out to make it even bigger because those blocks tend to be a little bit better for stroking the engine out. You can already do a straight 400 with a set of 4V heads and have a pretty decent run-in 351 that's not a 351 anymore, but there are some problems you're going to run into with that. Now, I'm going to start looking at discrepancies because there are things that make a 351 Cleveland better to put in a Ford from the early 1970s. One of those things is the fact that the 351 modified and the 400 use a different mounting procedure for the block to the engine or to the chassis. They use a 429 style engine mounting pad that bolts into the side of the block, whereas the 351 Cleveland uses the same mounting procedure as a small block 302. So you can take a 302 car and basically pull a Cleveland out of another car, throw it into a 302 car, and Viola, you're good to go and done. The balancing procedures are the same. All of that works out exactly the same on a Cleveland as it is on a 302, so that you can bolt a Cleveland to the flex plate or flywheel of a 302 car. If you have a 4-speed car and you have a 302, Cleveland will bolt right in. The M and the 400 are not that way. The way you can tell in looking at photographs, and here's where the Facebook part of it comes in, is there's two things to look for other than the mounting stuff, because most of the time when you're looking at these engines on Facebook Marketplace, you're not going to see down on the sides of the block. You're only going to see the top, and if you're really lucky, a rear shot of the engine block like the one I'm showing you here from a Facebook Marketplace that said the engine was a 351 Cleveland. It is not. It is a 351 modified. How do I know that? This photo I'm about to show you right here, this is a photo from the guys at Northeast Classic Ford Parts. They have a lot of great photographs on eBay right now, some engine blocks that they're selling. They sell a lot of blocks and things like that. You know, check them out. I don't get a dime from saying their name on here, but I used their photographs. They were nice enough to let me have them because I don't have a modified block to show you, and they had great photos of it, so that's where we're at. Now, the one that I'm showing you right now, you will see that there is a wall on the very front edge of the block on the driver's side. There's like this wall that sticks out on the housing for the timing cover area. That wall is indicative of a modified engine or a 400. You'll also note that the China wall, what we call a China wall in the back here on a Cleveland, if you're looking at our block, there is nothing here. This is a nice flat area, and the China wall is right down on this main flat surface where the water neck is at. On the modified, what I'm showing you right now, you'll see that the China wall is much taller. So that's an issue right there that you're going to want to be looking for if you're thinking you're buying a 351 Cleveland. The other issue is on the back side of the modified block. The modified 400 uses a big block C6 mounting. So with those two engines, the mounting procedure on the bell housing is for a big block transmission. Now that can be a boon or a bust. If you can access a truck 429, or excuse me, 460 from the late 90s, because they were running those engines then, you can get that transmission, the automatic overdrive transmission. I don't think it's a 4R70. I believe it's an, I don't know. I think it's an E something. Not sure. I'll put down here below me because my brain's not working that well today. Anyway, you can use that AOD transmission on the backside of your modified or 400 to get an automatic setup. But the problem runs in is if you say, hey, I want to do a manual shift and I want to do a 4-speed, you're going to pay a lot more money for the bell housing and transmission setup for a big block, which is what's required with the 351N and 400, than you will for a small block setup for this. Plus 5 speeds are readily available out there in the market for around $500 to $800. I've seen them listed used on Facebook Marketplace. 4 speeds for a small block run around $1,200. I'm imagining a big block 4-speed is going to be more money than that. And if I'm starting to go in that direction, why not just go ahead and go out and source a 460 or a 429? Because they are absolute perennial powerhouses. That's really it. Just wanted to give you some heads up on what you will be looking out for when you're buying one of these. This is your biggest indicator right here on the front. Bottom line, this is the thing you're going to see the most of in most photographs that I've seen on Facebook Marketplace and anywhere else. You're going to almost always be able to see where the distributor sits, and you'll be looking for that little wall right there. The bell housing side of things, that's about a 50% chance of seeing those photographs. Some people post the photos of the bell housing area, some people don't, but that's a giveaway tell-all. Your bigger problem runs into if you're buying a 71 to 73 400 that was in a passenger car. The valve covers aren't going to be a good indicator because they were still using the original style Ford, Powered by Ford valve covers then, and not just the blue oval valve covers they went to in 75. All right, so fast little video, but I wanted to get this information out because if it's bugging me, I'm sure that there's somebody else out there that it's bugging as well. Do me a favor, folks, be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other really nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. I'm really bummed out about this block. I'm hoping I can save it. I can't cross my fingers anymore.